Hi Internet, welcome to the Greg Troyan YouTube channel. To celebrate the release of Final Fantasy XVI, I made 16 different video essays, ranking the different Final Fantasy games in a bunch of different categories. The reason I decided to make that ranking was because I had beaten all of the other 15 mainline games prior to 16's release, so I decided, I should do a series of video essays because I've actually beaten all the Final Fantasy games. However, there was one giant asterisk that people pointed out to me in the comments many times. I had only beaten A Realm Reborn in regards to Final Fantasy XIV and had not beaten the rest of the expansions, and so there were claims that I had not beaten Final Fantasy XIV when ranking the games. Now in my intro video, I clarified that I considered expansion paths like sequels, and for my rankings of 14 and 11, I was ranking them based only upon the base game, except in certain categories like ranking games based upon expanded universe and ranking games based upon side content, in which case I factored in the expansions, and 11 and 14 both dominated in those categories. So I had a bunch of people in the comments asking me, begging me to play the rest of 14 and 14's expansions, and saying not to judge the game too harshly by A Realm Reborn. And a lot of people thought that Greg's just never going to get around to playing this. When I told people in the comments, no, it's definitely on my list, I want to play it, it's just I have other games I have on priority above it on my list. Basically, I have this FOMO list of live service games, and as you know, live service games, they tend to come and go. And on my list of live service games, there was Final Fantasy Dimensions 1 and 2, which aren't really live service games, but they're mobile exclusive games. You can pay for them on the App Store and then play them, but given how Square purges titles from existence, I didn't feel safe in those games continuing to exist in perpetuity. So I really wanted to play both of those, and I did. And I really wanted to play Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which no longer exists. Brave Exvius is gone, so it's good that I played it while I could. And actually, as I'm recording this, I think War of the Visions ends today, or maybe it was yesterday. And War of the Visions, I really didn't like gameplay-wise, and Season 1 of War of the Visions was actually kind of bad. But the story after Season 1 has been really good, and I've been following it. And so I just had this weird hunch that War of the Visions would get better. And narrative-wise, it definitely does. But is it a rough slog, both in terms of the narrative of the first part and the gameplay. And the music is also pretty repetitive, so there's a lot of dings against War of the Visions. But overall, still pretty good for at least in terms of narrative, and some of the characters are really strong. So I wanted to beat Brave Exvius at Dimensions 1 and 2 before jumping into 14. And I also wanted to play a game called Another Eden, which is now the game that I have more hours in any other game in my life, because that game is so massive. So basically, it is a single-player game that is the size of an MMO in terms of content, where basically it is a live service game made by Masato Kato of Chrono Trigger fame. And he made this game that is in some ways a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, but it's also its complete own thing. And it is an amazing RPG experience, one of my favorite games I've ever played in my entire life, but it is ridiculously content rich. And I'm just talking story content. I'm not even getting to crazy super bosses and stuff, which I barely dipped my toes into, just in terms of pure, you want to enjoy good stories the way you would enjoy good stories in Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV. It was easily over $1,000, not $1,000, 1,000 hours worth of content. And it was great. It was incredible. And the fact that it was from a free live service game where I never had to pay to win, and I was just able to enjoy the content, and it plays like a Super Nintendo RPG, turn-based combat, map exploration. It's not a gotcha game like Brave Exvius. The gameplay wasn't super great, but this one was satisfying narrative-wise, gameplay-wise. Music was great. Just all-around great experience. But the point is, I had those games in my FOMO list that I thought were more likely to disappear than 14, because I thought that Brave Exvius might get shut down. It did. Dimensions 1 and 2, I didn't think they were necessarily going to pull those games, but, still want to be better safe than sorry. And because Another Eden, it's an indie game from a small studio, it's live service and it's free, I'm how long is this game going to exist? And, I'm glad that I played it when I did. I encourage everyone to check it out. It's great. play it while you can. But I didn't want to risk missing out on it, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because it was incredible. And so Final Fantasy XIV was the next game on my list to play, but then Final Fantasy XVI went on a really good sale, and GeForce Now allowed it to be played on cheaper laptops like mine, because I don't own a PS5 or modern gaming hardware. So I'm like, you know what? It's the only mainline I haven't beaten. It's on a good sale. So I went ahead and plus, because I'd be, paying for GeForce Now for a month, it still counts as like a subscription service. And I didn't want to pay 2 subs at the same time. Pay for a sub of that and a sub for 14. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just like knock 16 out in basically a month, and then jump back into 14. And so that is what I did. But the trick is, I've actually been playing 14 continuously this whole time, because there's a buddy of mine who I met through doing the channel. Just met him like in the comments of one of my videos, of one of my Final Fantasy videos, and we've actually been playing 14 weekly together for the past couple years. We've been playing through A Realm Reborn, so he can experience it for the first time. We're like playing it together, him and I. And mostly I was playing with my the character I played 14 as before, Gred Troyan, just myself, and just sort of hanging around while he was doing the quests, and then like occasionally helping him with some fights. Because I'm still on the free trial. I'm going to be picking it up when the game Nets goes on sale, which I think should be like next month when the game goes on sale. So I'll pick up the full version and start subbing. But anyway, so I was playing through the game with my buddy as the Gred Troyan character. And 14's story, A Realm Reborn, it didn't necessarily wow me, but I didn't hate it either. It was like remarkably fine. But then midway through playing A Realm Reborn together, I thought it would be more fun if I had an alt character that I played through with my buddy, so that way I could experience the story the same as him. And beyond that, it could also help me refresh on A Realm Reborn. So when I jump back into 14 fully, the story would be fresher, and it wouldn't be, oh, I barely remember this because it's been so long. Because I actually beat Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn back in 2022, back in March of 2022, so it's been a few years. So I made an alt character and started playing along with my buddy, and the alt character was basically just my character from 11 plopped into 14's world. And I decided that I liked the alt character better, so that's going to be actually my main going forward. And my alt character is now the Gred Troyan character, who will be playing 14 with my buddy once a week. But the point is, I decided if I'm going to get back into 14, I want to like fully immerse myself in the world of 14. So what I did was I watched story summaries of both 1.0 and A Realm Reborn, and watched the 1.0 cutscenes, which was the second time I've watched the 1.0 cutscenes. And also rewatched an older version of A Realm Reborn cutscenes, on top of like re-beating The Realm Reborn. And also watched the like 1.0 Hildebrand cutscenes too. So I am like fully immersed in 14 at this point, and just like back in the saddle, like fresh on the story. I'm not watching any other TV shows. I'm not playing any other games aside from like dailies with Another Eden, which I might even end up dropping that for a bit as I really focus on 14, but I'm still doing dailies because there's like a couple collectibles that I haven't gotten. I'm like, I kind of want to, but I haven't had the time really with 14. But, not watching any other TV shows, not reading any other novels. Like, I like to consume one story at a time. And, if there's like a new story update for Another Eden, I will jump in and play that. But otherwise, I made sure that like 14 is my focus. And so at this point, I am actually going in and doing more content in 14 as Lito. And I have seen, like some story spoilers about stuff that happens in later expansions. So I know that like there's like the whole Warriors of Darkness thing, and you're going to go to the moon, and then Emexelk is really cool. And there's like class warfare and stuff in Shadowbringers, and I know like the twist with Ida. So I know some spoilers, but like I'm a guy who doesn't mind spoilers in gaming. But this is my first time like really going through this content. Like I didn't watch cutscenes for anything past A Realm Reborn, and I don't remember all the specifics of each plot point. So like I have like a general idea of what's going to happen, but there's still room for like it to like hit that way. Anyway, the long story short, I thought it might be fun to share like Final Fantasy 14 vlogs with everybody, because I know there is this expectation that I will do a video essay on 14, one friend of mine who really thinks I need to do a video essay for 14 the same way I did for 11, where I just go through like all the expansions in just a giant video essay, which, you know, I am considering, but the essay that I will definitely make is ranking all of the expansions between 11 and 14, putting them together in a list and seeing where everything stands at. I think that'll be a really fun video to compare all the 14 expansions versus all the 11 expansions, because, you know, 11 is one of my favorite games. And I admit I've been pretty skeptical of 14 just because of how much I loved 11. And certain things in the Final Fantasy fandom tend to be overhyped. Like, I love FF6, but people act like FF6 is like a 13 out of 10, and the other Final Fantasy games are like 6s out of 10s. And like, it's just like overhyped to an absurd degree where it's like, it's really good, but it's not leaps and bounds better than everything else. And so the sheer amount of like hype and praise 14 gets, you know, it's a lot to live up to. And also it's interesting, you know, with all the like the negativity around Dawntrail, like how will I feel when I get to Dawntrail, because I like a lot of, you know, Final Fantasy stuff that is a bit more controversial. So maybe Dawntrail is going to vibe super hard with me. I don't know. But point being, I thought it'd be fun if I did like some little vlogs in between video essays as I'm playing through 14, just giving my thoughts on like, you know, what I've experienced in 14 lately, unscripted thoughts, just, you know, very casual off the cuff. Let you know, like, hey, this is what I did in 14. This is what I thought. You know, I'd like to make these weekly things, maybe. I don't know if I'll have the time to do it, but I think that'd be fun. I've already talked way longer than I thought I was going to. The unedited recording of this is at like 15 minutes. And I'm like, yo, I thought this was going to be like a 5-minute vid top. So, but, you know, that's how it goes with the unscripted ramblings of Greg Troyan. So, what are my thoughts, like, you know, beating A Realm Reborn for a second time and then jumping into this new content? So it's wild how much A Realm Reborn has changed from when I first played it in 2022 to now. Obviously, they got NPCs that you can do dungeons with, but it is a lot slower doing dungeons with the NPCs, with the trusts, and so it's still better to do them with other players because you will get matched up pretty quick, and you can fly through the content. So it's nice that they got rid of that roadblock, but it is dramatically slower trying to do dungeons with trust. That is, you know, one interesting thing. The biggest shocker was that a lot of the like 8-man fights were changed in A Realm Reborn, where like straight up like like 2 of them are now solo instances. The fight against La Habrea at the end being a solo instance, like changing that from an 8-man fight to a solo instance was really a giant shocker. And I was really struggling with the fight. It was much harder mechanically than anything else in A Realm Reborn, until I figured out the trick was like just run away from him for the first phase of the fight, and then it'll be fine after that. But I didn't realize like the strategy was just literally just avoid and don't worry about doing damage for a while. But that was like a real shocker. And I think like the pacing of the fight is like better for like dramatic narrative. But in terms of game preservation, I don't know if I like it because, you know, I like people being able to experience the same game. And 14, like at its core, doesn't care about that because they just straight up yeeted 1.0 from existence. So like, you know, I debate a lot with people who like private servers of 11 in my comment section, because I think private servers for 11 are unethical because it's basically just the same game, but they like removed gear and some quality of life updates and like certain expansions. And they're like, look, we made the game better by just hit and delete. And I think it's like disrespectful to do and unethical when there's like dudes actively working on updating the game and making new content, and they did like expansion content like 2 years ago. Like that just feels like a slap in the face to the devs. And there's nothing you can't do in a private server that you couldn't do in retail. Versus in 14, like it's straight up just like a different boss fight with different mechanics, different music, like technically the same character, but it's just like it's a completely different experience. An 8-man, you know, team up fight is now a 1v1 fight with like different moves, different music. Like it's a different fight. And so from like a historical preservation standpoint, even though I think like ultimately the new fight is better, I don't know if I like the change from a historical preservation standpoint. But it was definitely like a wild slap in the face, thinking like, oh yeah, I know what's coming, I got this. And then like actually hitting like some difficulty and something unexpected. So even with spoilers for 14, like content I've already beaten is surprising me. So how do I feel about like the post A Realm Reborn content? Well, what I've been playing so far, post A Realm Reborn, has been really, really good. And like the leap in quality has actually been pretty shocking. I've been genuinely surprised at how much better things have gotten since A Realm Reborn and just beating the base game. I've got a checklist of content that I've gotten through, like just reading different, like, you know, stuff on Reddit, different message boards, seeing different YouTube videos. And so I have a checklist of content to do, like, you know, in between each expansion and, you know, like, you know, what raids to do, et cetera, et cetera. And also then, you know, supplemented it with stuff I just sort of found on my own that I found interesting. So I really thought the whole stuff with Edda and her party was really interesting. And so I did the first side quest where you go to the Tamtara Deepcroft, I think that's what it's called, and did the first like Edda quest, which like, you know, has that like, you know, beautiful dark tragedy to it. And I really, really liked that. I was really impressed with it, thought it was great. And then I tried doing Palace of the Dead, but because no one is doing that content, I had to solo it. And, you know, I probably could do it if I had a bit more patience solo. But the thing is, I, like on floor like 9, I keep getting hit with like a bunch of traps. And it's just, it got like really obnoxious, like everything was fine. And then all of a sudden a trap, and then you're like ganged up on by like 12 enemies. And then you hit another trap that like knocks out the rest of your health. And so Palace of the Dead, I ended up just like watching cutscenes for, and then the like last Edda quest, watching the cutscenes for, which I had actually watched previously, but you know, for the second time, I still enjoyed it very much. And I will probably do Palace of the Dead with a buddy of mine who I play 14 with once a week. I think doing it just like the two of us will be a lot of fun. I think we can get to floor 50, the two of us. And I'll probably use Lito to get to floor 50 with him and do all the Edda stuff. And we're doing the Edda quest together next week, so that'll be fun. I also did the Remember in the Past quest, where you get some more, you know, lore about Louisoix, so that was pretty cool. And then currently I'm doing the Hildebrand questline, which is living up to the hype. It's hilarious. The cutscenes are really well directed. They're like so much better directed than the Realm Reborn cutscenes. And it's hitting like those classic Final Fantasy beats of just like that comedy and whimsy that was sort of lost in a lot of the more serious entries. I think this questline in particular is making it really hit as to why people love the rest of 14 so much, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if we get like serious storytelling with cutscenes of this quality, okay, yeah, all right, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to see where this extreme love of 14 is coming from, and I'm definitely seeing the potential there, where I had a lot more skepticism, but it's starting to make a lot more sense because of how good the Hildebrand questline is. So I'm still making my way through it. I ended up in a like 2.5 hour queue to do Battle on the Big Bridge, and because like, no one does the older content. And then I went to the bathroom, and then I missed my spot, which was really obnoxious. But then I got I just like started asking some people around, and then got a party together and did Battle on the Big Bridge, which is fun. And I now need help doing getting parties together for the other 8-man raids in the Hildebrand questline. But thus far, I've been loving it. So yeah, you know, those are just my thoughts on some of the content I've been doing in 14 lately, and thought this might be kind of a fun video to do. And I thought this would be like, ooh, something quick I can knock out in 5 minutes and just, you know, plop up on YouTube. But now I see it's going to be much longer than 5 minutes. So I don't know whether or not I'll be able to do these weekly like I wanted. I don't know if there'll be like the demand or audience there, but still, thought it'd be fun. Figured I'd give it an experiment. Let's, you know, see how Final Fantasy 14 Vlog 1 goes if there's an audience for it. You know, if it's like 2 people watch, like, all right, I probably won't do this again. But, you know, if enough people watch and want to hear, you know, the journey of someone going through 14 for the first-ish time, you know, sub to the channel, comment, and ask me some questions about what I think. And, I'm curious to keep the discussion going. That's really what I'm looking for here, is just the communication with 14 fans, so, they can go along this journey with me. So that's the video. Thanks for watching. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. I think that might be a fun thing to do, like some Q&A. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and stick around. If, this video gets enough interest, I'll keep doing these 14 vlogs, let you know what content I'm doing and what I think of it. And, be sure to check out my other Final Fantasy content. I've got a ton of it on the channel, and it's good for binging. So, yeah, do the liking, the commenting, the subscribe, and all that stuff. And, yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.